Each element in the page builder can be styled from the sidebar. First, select the element that you want to style. This should take you to the Edit tab on the sidebar. Now choose the Style tab. The styling options are grouped into categories. Some categories may or may not be available depending on the nature of the element. In this video, we'll talk about borders, shadows, width and height, backgrounds, visibility, and animations. Let's start with the border. There are 4 different border styles. The first one is none, it means there is no border. The second one is solid, which represents a solid line. The third one is dashed, and the fourth one is dotted. You can change the border size using the border size slider. You can also set different border sizes for each side. The border radius allows you to change how rounded the border is on the corners. And then under border color, you can set a color for your border. The shadow option allows you to add a shadow to your element. Click Add Shadow, and then select the shadow type. The shadow can be outside or inside of the element. The X and Y values define how distant the shadow is from your elements on the X and Y axis. These values can either be positive or negative. The blur value defines how blurry the shadow is, and the spread value defines how big the shadow is. You can change the color of your shadow here, and you can also add multiple shadows to create different effects. If the element that you have currently selected is a text element, you will also see a text shadow. The text shadow works exactly the same as the regular shadow, except that instead of being applied to the box that's wrapping the element, it is directly applied to the text itself. Let's talk about the width and height. Most elements can be resized right from within the preview area using the resize handles. This directly changes the values of the width and height. You can also change the width and height values manually from the sidebar, and you can also set the unit that you want to use with that value. By default, the width and height don't have any values. This lets the browser set their values automatically. Let's, for example, set the width of this image to 100%. This will make the image take the full width of its container. Setting the width as a percentage is a great practice when you are building mobile responsive designs, because now if I go to mobile, the image will be resized accordingly because its width will follow the container's size. But you can notice on desktop, the image is quite large. This is where the minimum and maximum width come into play. Now I can set the maximum width for this image to be 400 pixels. Now it looks better on desktop, and it still takes 100% of its container on mobile because that's less than 400 pixels. A color background can be easily set using the color option under background, and we can add multiple backgrounds using the Add Background button. This allows us to add color, gradients, or images as backgrounds. Under visibility, I can change the opacity of the element, and I can choose on which devices I want this element to be visible or hidden. The overflow determines what happens when this element's children's position or size goes outside of the boundaries of this element. The first option is an automatic behavior. This usually adds a scroll bar to this element. The second option is visible, meaning the children will be visible even outside of this element's boundaries. The third option is hidden, meaning the children's parts that are outside of this element's boundaries will be hidden. And the last option is scroll. This forces this element to have a scroll bar. Now keep in mind that the overflow option is only available for container elements, meaning elements that are able to have children, like a section or a container. So you won't see this option on an image, for example. The cursor option allows you to change the mouse icon when it hovers the object on desktop. And under animations, you can select an entrance animation for each element when it becomes visible on the screen. And that's an overview on how to style elements inside the page builder.